Ambassador Heian stood in the center of the council chamber, trying to keep her face calm even though her heart was racing. The chamber was enormous, a perfect circle that floated in space above the council's homeworld. Through the transparent floor beneath her feet, she could see the planet spinning slowly below. All around her, holographic projections of alien representatives flickered and glowed. There were 847 of them, representing every species in the Galactic Council. And right now, every single one of them was staring at her. The year was 2247. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council only 30 years ago. They were the newest members, the youngest species to ever be accepted into this ancient alliance. The Council had existed for 12,000 years. Humanity had barely learned to leave their own solar system when the Council found them. Now, 30 years later, the Council wanted them gone. Heian looked up at the speaker's platform, where a massive insectoid alien was reading the charges against humanity. The creature had 6 legs and hundreds of tiny eyes that glittered like black diamonds. It represented the Vrilix Collective, one of the oldest and most powerful species in the Council. Humanity has violated Council law 37 times in 3 decades, the Vrilix speaker announced. Its voice was translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. They have established colonies in 23 systems without proper authorization. They have developed weapons technology that breaks 3 separate peace treaties. They have refused to accept genetic modification that would calm their violent tendencies. They have created artificial intelligence beyond approved parameters. They are too aggressive, too unpredictable, too dangerous. A crystalline being that looked like living glass floated forward. This was a representative of the Methadari, another elder species. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. Humanity is young. They do not understand the rules that keep our alliance peaceful. We have tried to guide them, to teach them. They refuse to learn. Hyun stepped forward. Her voice echoed across the chamber. The Council speaks of our violations, but they do not speak of our contributions. In 30 years, humanity has ended 2 wars between your species through negotiation. We have shared medical technology that saved billions of lives. We have explored more systems and gathered more scientific data than any species has in a century. Yes, we are young. Yes, we make mistakes. But we are also valuable members of this alliance. She could see some of the aliens nodding. Not many, but some. The problem was that the elder species controlled most of the votes. The Vrilix and the Methadari had already decided. This trial was just for show. The vote took 3 hours. Hyun stood there the entire time watching as species after species cast their vote on the holographic display. Green meant humanity could stay. Red meant exile. The red lights far outnumbered the green ones' final tally. 723 voted for exile. Only 124 voted against it. The Vrilix speaker's voice rang out across the chamber. The Council has decided. Humanity is hereby exiled from Council space. All human colonies must be abandoned within 5 standard years. All trade agreements are void. All shared technology must be returned. You will go back to your own corner of the galaxy and remain there. Hyun bowed her head. She looked defeated, sad, broken. But inside her mind was racing and her heart was soaring. She had known this was coming. They all had. As she turned to leave the chamber, she activated the small communication device hidden in her sleeve. Admiral Taiyang, she said quietly. They voted us out. The count was 723 to 124. Initiate Protocol Exodus. In orbit above the Council homeworld, aboard the human dreadnought Indomitable, Admiral Taiyang received the message. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had been in the military for 40 years. He had seen 3 wars and dozens of diplomatic disasters. This exile didn't surprise him at all. In fact, he had been expecting it. He smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had been preparing for this moment for a very long time. All ships, he said into his command console. Protocol Exodus is active. Begin Phase 1 of the withdrawal, and send the signal to the colonies. It's time. Around him, his crew moved quickly and efficiently. They weren't panicking. They weren't sad. If anything, they looked excited. His second-in-command, Commander Juan, stepped up beside him. She was young for her rank, only 35, but she had earned her position. 2 years ago, she had been the intelligence officer who first discovered that the Council was planning to exile humanity. She had brought the evidence to Earth's leadership. She had given them time to prepare. "Admiral," she said, "the colony ships are ready. All 300 of them. They've been waiting for this order?" Taiyang nodded. "Good. The Council thinks they're sending a young, weak species back to their homeworld with their tails between their legs. They have no idea what we've been building. Should I feel bad about deceiving them?" Juan asked. Taiyang looked at her. "They've been deceiving us since the day we joined. They never wanted us here. They accepted us into the Council because they were curious about us, like scientists studying an interesting animal. The moment we started to grow, to become strong, to ask difficult questions, they decided we were too dangerous. So no, Commander, I don't feel bad at all." Across human space, the message spread. On Earth, in the government chambers in Geneva, the human leadership received the news. They had been expecting it to. President Han Seong stood up from her desk and looked out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, 300 massive colony ships were preparing to launch. Each one carried 100,000 people. Each one was equipped with technology the Council had never seen. For 2 years, humanity's best scientists and engineers had been working in secret. They had made breakthroughs that would have taken decades under normal circumstances. They had been motivated by one simple fact. The Council was going to exile them, and they needed to be ready. Dr. Kangman had completed the prototype of a quantum slipstream drive. It could move a ship across the galaxy in days instead of months. The Council didn't have anything like it. Chief Engineer Su Yun had designed mobile space stations that could harvest resources from any star system. They didn't need supply lines or trade routes. They were completely self-sufficient. Biologist Junji had developed new terraforming technology. She could make a dead planet livable in 30 years instead of 300. All of this had been done in secret. The Council had been watching humanity, but they had been watching for weapons and warships. They hadn't been looking for colony ships and terraforming technology. Han returned to the indomitable 12 hours after the vote. She looked tired, but satisfied. Taiyang met her in the docking bay. "How are you feeling?" He asked, relieved. She said, "I've been pretending to beg for their mercy for 2 years. It's exhausting, but you don't have to pretend anymore. We're going home. And then we're going beyond." Yuan smiled. "The Council thinks they've punished us. They think we'll crawl back to Earth and stay there, weak and isolated. They're going to be very surprised," as Taiyang agreed. "Yes, they are." 3 days later, the human fleet began its withdrawal from Council space. Council observers watched the exodus with satisfaction. They saw human ships leaving Council stations, human colonies being evacuated, human diplomats packing up their offices. What they didn't see was the truth. The humans weren't running away. They were launching. Every ship that left Council space was heading not to Earth, but beyond it, into the unexplored regions of the galaxy that the Council had never bothered to investigate. The Council had existed for 12,000 years. They had explored much of the galaxy, but they had grown comfortable. They stuck to their established routes, their known systems, their safe territories. Humanity was about to go where the Council had never dared to venture. As the last human ship crossed the border of Council space, Haynes stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and looked at the star map. Ahead of them was darkness. Unknown space, mystery. "They voted to exile Earth," she said quietly. "We didn't wait to be asked twice." Taiyang stood beside her. "No," he said, "we didn't. And they're going to regret it." Captain Minji walked through the corridors of the horizon's edge, her boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. The ship was enormous, one of the largest vessels humanity had ever built. It was 3 kilometers long and could carry 100,000 people in comfort. Around her, families were settling into their new quarters. Children ran through the hallways, excited about the adventure ahead. Adults unpacked their belongings and started making their new homes. 3 months had passed since the Council's vote. The exodus was in full swing. 300 colony ships like the Horizon's Edge were leaving human space, heading into the unknown. But these weren't refugee ships fleeing in panic. These were generation ships, equipped with everything needed to survive and thrive without any help from anyone. Minji reached the bridge and looked at the view screen. Outside, she could see dozens of other human ships. Some were colony ships like hers. Others were mining vessels, science ships, military escorts, and mobile factories. Together, they formed a fleet that stretched across millions of kilometers of space. "Status report," she said to her first officer. "All systems green, Captain. Quantum slipstream drive is charged and ready. All passengers are secured. We're ready to jump on your order." Mingy nodded. She thought about how they had gotten here. 3 months ago, the Council had voted to exile humanity. But the truth was, humanity had been preparing for this moment for 2 years. It had started with Commander Jawan. She was an intelligence officer who had spent 5 years, bedded in Council space, watching and listening. 2 years ago, she had intercepted a communication between the Vrilix Collective and the Methodari. They were planning to exile humanity. They had been planning it almost since the day humans joined the Council. G1 had brought the evidence back to Earth. She had shown it to President Hanzong and the military leadership. The communications made it clear. The elder species saw humanity as a threat. They didn't like how fast humans learned. They didn't like how humans questioned their rules. They didn't like that humanity refused to be modified, controlled, or contained. "They're going to exile us," Juan had told the assembled leaders. "It's not a question of if. It's a question of when." President Hansun had made a decision. Then we don't wait for them. We prepare. We build. When they finally vote to exile us, we'll already be ready to leave. And we'll leave on our terms, not theirs. That decision had led to the greatest secret project in human history. While diplomats like Ambassador Heian pretended to beg the Council for mercy, thousands of scientists and engineers worked in hidden facilities across human space. Dr. Kangman had been given unlimited resources and one goal: make humanity faster than anyone else in the galaxy. He had gathered a team of 200 physicists. They had worked 18-hour days for 2 years. The result was the quantum slipstream drive. It used principles of physics that the Council didn't even know existed. A ship with a slipstream drive could cross distances in days that would take Council ships months to travel. Chief Engineer Suyun had built something equally revolutionary. Her mobile space stations could move from system to system. They could harvest resources from asteroids, moons, and gas giants. They could manufacture everything from food to starship parts. Each station could support 50,000 people indefinitely. Humanity didn't need supply lines anymore. They didn't need to trade with anyone. They were self-sufficient. Biologist Yunji had solved the problem that had limited human expansion for decades. Terraforming a planet used to take 300 years. She had found a way to do it in 30. She had developed bacteria that could convert carbon dioxide to oxygen 100 times faster than natural processes. She had created plants that could grow in almost any soil. She had designed entire ecosystems that could be deployed like seeds and would spread across a planet in decades. All of this had been done in secret. The Council had been watching humanity for signs of military buildup. They had been counting warships and weapons. They hadn't been watching the civilian sectors. They hadn't noticed the 300 massive colony ships being built in remote systems. They hadn't paid attention to the scientific breakthroughs happening in hidden laboratories now. As Minji stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Edge, she was grateful for all that preparation, because ahead of her was the biggest challenge humanity had ever faced. Building a new civilization from scratch in unknown space. "Captain," her navigation officer said, "we're approaching the Council's space boundary. Once we cross, we'll be in unexplored territory." Minji activated the ship-wide communication system. Her voice echoed through every corridor, every room, every space on the ship. 100,000 people heard her words. "This is Captain Minji. In 5 minutes, we will cross the boundary of Council space. Everything beyond that line is unknown. The Council has spent 12,000 years exploring the galaxy, but they've grown comfortable. They stick to their established routes. They avoid risks. We're about to go where they never dared to go. Some of you might be scared. That's okay. But remember this. The Council wanted us gone because they feared what we might become. They were afraid of our potential. Today, we're going to start proving them right. Not because we're going to destroy anyone, but because we're going to build something better than anything the galaxy has ever seen. Humanity has always thrived when faced with challenges. Being exiled isn't a punishment. It's an opportunity. Hold on to your loved ones. Get ready for the jump. And welcome to your new future. The ship fell silent as the countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The quantum slipstream drive activated. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around the ship. For a moment, the stars outside the view screen stretched into long lines of light. Then everything snapped back to normal. But they were no longer in the same place. In an instant, they had traveled 40 light years. Minji looked at the view screen and smiled. Navigation, where are we? Captain, sensors show. God. Captain, you need to see this. The view screen changed to show a tactical map of the surrounding space. Minji felt her breath catch in her throat. Ahead of them was a region of space filled with stars. Hundreds of stars. Thousands of stars. And according to the sensors, at least 40 of them had planets in the habitable zone. Garden worlds. Rich with resources. Perfect for colonization. Have the Council ever been here? Minji asked. Her science officer checked the databases. No, Captain. There are no Council records of this region. It's completely unexplored. Minji laughed. She couldn't help it. The Council had exiled humanity, thinking they were sending them back to a small corner of the galaxy. Instead, they had pushed humanity into a region rich beyond imagination. The Council had explored the galaxy along predictable routes, moving from one established system to another. They had never bothered to look sideways. To check the regions between their major territories, humanity had just claimed an entire galactic arm for themselves. And the Council didn't even know it existed. Send a message to the fleet, Minji ordered. Tell them what we've found. And then let's start surveying these systems. We have 200 worlds to settle, and we're going to need all of them. Over the next 3 months, the human exodus continued. 300 colony ships spread out across the newly discovered region. They found paradise after paradise. Worlds with breathable atmospheres, oceans filled with simple life, forests and plains waiting to be explored, resource-rich asteroids, gas giants perfect for fuel harvesting. The first colony was established on a planet, named New Sol. It would become humanity's new capital. Within weeks, 100,000 people had built a city. Within months, they had established farms, factories, and universities. Biologist Yunji deployed her terraforming bacteria on 3 other worlds. In 30 years, those planets would be as beautiful as Earth, back in Council space. Automated monitoring stations watched the human exodus with mechanical eyes. The data they gathered was sent back to the Council chamber. The elder species watched the reports with satisfaction at first. The humans were leaving. The threat was gone. Everything was going according to plan. Then the reports started showing things that didn't make sense. The human ships were too large. They were using technology the Council had never seen before. And they weren't heading back to Earth. They were heading into unexplored space. Moving faster than Council ships could follow in the Council chamber. A Vrilix observer brought troubling news to the speaker. The humans aren't running away. They're expanding. And their ships. We don't understand their ships. They're moving at speeds that should be impossible. The Methodary representative floated forward, its crystalline body pulsing with concern. How did they build this technology? We've been monitoring them for 30 years. How did we miss this? The truth was simple. They had been looking in the wrong places. They had been watching for military threats. They hadn't been watching human scientists and engineers working in secret facilities. They hadn't been paying attention to the civilian sectors, where the real breakthroughs were happening. By the time the Council realized what was happening, it was too late. Humanity was gone, vanished into unexplored space. And they had taken with them technology that made them faster, more efficient, and more capable than any species in the Council. 5 years had passed since the Exile vote. The Council's deadline was over. Humanity was supposed to be gone, banished to their homeworld, weak and isolated. The elder species had moved on to other concerns. The human problem was solved. Then the reports started arriving in the Council chamber. Automated probes sent back data from former human territory. The Council had sent these probes to confirm that humanity had obeyed the Exile order. What they discovered made no sense at all. The Vrillic speaker stood before the assembled Council, reading the probe data with growing confusion. The probes report, "This cannot be correct. They detect 200 inhabited worlds in the region where humans were exiled." 200. When they left Council space 5 years ago, they had only 23 colonies. Methodari, representative's crystalline body flickered with distress. How is this possible? How did they expand so quickly? More data came in. The Council watched in stunned silence as the probes revealed the truth. Humanity hadn't just survived their exile. They had thrived. What had once been scattered colonies, barely clinging to survival, was now something else entirely. The humans called it the human sphere. 200 worlds. 87 billion people, nearly double the population from 5 years ago. Massive space stations that moved between systems. Ships that traveled at impossible speeds. An economy that produced more than the entire Council had produced in the same time period. On New Sol. Coordinator Ji-Wan stood in the Human Assembly building, preparing her annual report. She had been promoted from Commander to Coordinator of Human Intelligence. Her job was to keep track of everything happening in human space and beyond. Today, she would present her findings to the Assembly. The Assembly Hall was filled with representatives from all 200 human worlds. President Hansunom sat at the center, ready to listen. Gi-Wan activated the holographic display and began her presentation. The Council expected us to disappear, to become weak and isolated. Instead, we have built the most successful human civilization in history. Our population has grown from 45 billion to 87 billion. We have settled 200 worlds. Our economic output is 4 times what it was before the exile. We have made breakthroughs in energy production, medical science, and agricultural technology. We are not just surviving. We are thriving. The Assembly applauded. But Ji-Wan wasn't finished. However, we are not the only ones affected by the exile. The Council is suffering. Without our agricultural technology, 3 member species are facing food shortages. Without our medical advances, disease outbreaks that we could have helped prevent are spreading. The Council's economy has shrunk by 12%. 2 minor species have left the Council, saying they don't feel safe after seeing how we were treated. President Hanzong leaned forward. "Are you saying the Council is weakening?" Guan nodded. "Yes, Madam President. They thought they were getting rid of a problem. Instead, they got rid of one of their most valuable members. And they're starting to realize it. While the Council struggled, humanity was making new friends." Explorer Haijin commanded the Pioneer's Dream, a science vessel tasked with exploring the edges of human space. She was young for a captain, only 30 years old, but she was brilliant. Her ship had been traveling for 8 months, mapping new systems and searching for signs of intelligent life. Then, in a system 40 light years from the nearest human colony, her sensors detected something. A ship. Not human. Not Council. Something else. "All hands to stations," Haijin ordered. "We've made contact with an unknown species. Weapons stay offline. We approach peacefully." The alien ship was beautiful. It was made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Geometric patterns covered its hull, glowing with soft blue light. It was smaller than the Pioneer's Dream, but moved with incredible grace. A communication came through. It took the ship's computer 30 seconds to translate the alien language. When it did, a voice filled the bridge. Human vessel. "We are the K Throne. We have been watching your species with great interest. We wish to speak with you." Jin felt her heart racing. First contact with a new species? This was what every explorer dreamed of. Catharan vessel. This is Captain Hajin of the Pioneer's Dream. We are peaceful explorers representing humanity. We would be honored to speak with you. The conversation that followed changed everything. The Catharen, it turned out, had been watching the Council for centuries. They lived far beyond Council space, in regions the Council had never explored. They had the technology to visit Council territory whenever they wanted, but they chose not to. We watched the Council grow stagnant, the Catharen ambassador explained. They explore nothing new. They create nothing new. They simply exist, maintaining what they have built. When we saw humanity join the Council, we were hopeful. You were young, energetic, creative. Then we watched them exile you. And we watched what you did next. What did we do? Heejin asked. You achieved in 5 years what takes most species 50? You didn't just survive. You built something magnificent. You are exactly the kind of species we want to know. The Catharen proposed an alliance. They would share their advanced energy matrix technology, which could power entire cities from a device the size of a car. In exchange, they wanted access to human shipbuilding techniques. They wanted to learn how humanity built so quickly, so efficiently, so creatively. Hyjin sent the proposal back to New Seoul. The human assembly debated for a week and then voted yes. Humanity's first alliance with a species that wasn't part of the Council? It was a historic moment. But while humanity was making friends, the Council was having regrets. Crystalline Elder 7 was a Methadari, who had voted for humanity's exile 5 years ago. Like many of the elder species, it had believed humanity was too dangerous to remain in the Council. Now, 5 years later, it was beginning to question that decision. The Methadaria were suffering from a plague that was slowly spreading through their crystalline bodies. Before the exile, human doctors had helped treat similar diseases. Human medical technology was more advanced than anything the Methadari had. Now that the humans were gone, the plague was spreading unchecked. Crystalline Elder 7 volunteered to lead a delegation to human space. It was a controversial decision. Many council members believed humanity should be left alone, isolated as punishment. But the Methadari were desperate. The delegation arrived at the edge of human sphere space and requested permission to enter. They were met at Outpost Liberty, a massive space station that guarded the border. It was bigger than any council station, bristling with weapons and shields, but also beautiful, decorated with art and gardens visible through transparent sections. Ambassador Taiyang met the delegation in a conference room with windows that looked out at the stars. He had been promoted from admiral to ambassador, tasked with handling all external relations. When he saw Crystalline Elder 7, he recognized it immediately. This was one of the beings who had voted for humanity's exile. "Welcome to human space," Taiyang said, his voice neutral. "You've traveled a long way." Crystalline Elder 7's body pulsed with colors that the translator interpreted as embarrassment and shame. We come to ask for your help. And to offer you something in return? Help with what? Our people are dying from a plague. Your medical technology could save us. We know we have no right to ask this. We voted to exile you, but we are desperate. Ayang sat down and gestured for the Methadaria to do the same. Its crystalline body settled onto a chair designed for its unique physiology. You exiled us because you feared us. Now you want our help? Why should we give it to you? Because Crystalline Elder 7 said quietly, "We were wrong. We feared your strength, your growth, your refusal to be controlled. We thought exile would solve our problem. Instead, we weakened ourselves and gave you freedom to become even stronger. We were fools, and now our people are paying the price for our foolishness." Taiyang leaned back in his chair. He thought about the 5 years since the exile, the struggles, the hard work, the incredible achievements. Part of him wanted to refuse, to let the council suffer for what they had done. But that wasn't the human way. Humanity had left council space with their heads held high. They had built something amazing. They had nothing to prove anymore. "The council isn't ready to hear this," Taiyang said, "but I'll say it anyway. We'll help you. We'll share our medical technology. We'll send doctors to treat your plague, but not because you deserve it. We'll do it because it's the right thing to do." Crystalline Elder 7's body glowed with gratitude. "Thank you. But I must tell you, the council wants more than just medical help. They want you to come back. They're preparing an official request for humanity to return to the council. Taiyang stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see human ships moving between the stars. Efficient, powerful, free. Tell the council we're not interested in returning. We've moved on. But we're willing to offer something else. A partnership, not membership. We won't submit to council authority anymore, but we can work together as equals. Trade, share technology, defend each other if needed, but on our terms, not theirs. The message was sent to the council chamber. For 3 days, the elder species debated. Some were outraged. How dare humanity make demands? Others were more practical. 2 years had passed since humanity formed their alliance with 7 council species. It was a time of peace and prosperity. Human technology flowed into council space, improving lives across hundreds of worlds. Council knowledge and cultural exchanges enriched human society. The arrangement worked well for everyone involved. Then science. Officer Daeyun detected something that changed everything. Daeyun worked aboard the Curiosity, a deep space research vessel that explored the farthest edges of known space. He was a quiet man who preferred the company of stars and data to people. He had been analyzing quantum signatures at the edge of explored space when his instruments detected something unusual. "Captain," he said, his voice tight with worry, "I'm picking up massive energy readings. Multiple sources. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands." The Curiosity's captain came to look at his display. "What are we looking at?" "Ships, Captain. A fleet so large, I can barely count them all. And they're using technology I've never seen before. Their quantum signatures are beyond anything in our databases. More advanced than human tech? More advanced than council tech? More advanced than anything we've encountered? Where are they headed?" Daeon ran the calculations. His face went pale. "Toward us. Toward council space and the human sphere. They'll reach the outer colonies in approximately 8 months." The news reached New Seoul within hours. Supreme Director Han Zhang, who had been promoted from president after the formation of the expanded human sphere, called an emergency session of the assembly. Representatives from all 200 human worlds gathered via holographic link. The intelligence report was grim. The approaching fleet belonged to something called the Vex Coalition. They were an empire of 5 species that existed far beyond council space. They had been expanding for 200 years, conquering every civilization they encountered. What do they want? Someone asked. Coordinator Giwan brought up the intercepted Vex communications on the main display. They want everyone to join them, but not as equals. The Vex believe in forced unity. Every species in their coalition has been genetically modified to be docile and obedient. They remove the parts of the brain that allow for independent thought, creativity, and resistance. They see diversity as weakness. They see free will as a disease that must be cured. The assembly hall fell silent. This was everything humanity stood against. They had been exiled from the council because they refused to be modified, controlled, or contained. Now they faced an enemy that wanted to do exactly that to every species in the galaxy. "How long do we have?" Hanzung asked. 8 months until they reach the outer colonies. Maybe a year before they reach New Seoul or Council Core worlds. What are they offering? Giwan pulled up another communication. A face appeared on the screen. It was humanoid, but wrong somehow. Its eyes were dead, empty of emotion. Its voice was flat and mechanical. "This is the Vex Coalition. We offer you peace through unity. Join us willingly, and your transition will be painless. Your people will be modified to remove conflict, aggression, and dissent. You will live in perfect harmony under our guidance. Refuse, and you will be destroyed. You have 1 standard year to decide." The message ended. The assembly erupted in shouting. Some called for immediate military preparation. Others wanted to try negotiation. A few suggested running, abandoning their territory and fleeing deeper into unexplored space. Hunziang raised her hand for silence. "We need to contact the council. This threat affects all of us." In the council chamber, chaos reigned. The elder species that had exiled humanity 7 years ago now faced a terrible irony. They needed humanity's aggressive warlike nature to survive. Without human military doctrine, human weapons technology, and human willingness to fight, the Council had no hope of defeating the Vex, the Vrillic speaker, the same being that had announced humanity's exile. Now stood before the Council making a plea. We were wrong. We cast humanity out for the very traits we now desperately need. We feared their strength, their aggression, their refusal to be controlled. Now those same traits are our only hope of survival. Will they help us? After what we did to them? Crystalline Elder 7 spoke up. They helped us when we asked for medical aid, even after we exiled them. Perhaps they will help us now. A delegation was sent to New Sol, 20 council representatives, including the Vrillic speaker and Crystalline Elder 7, stood before the human assembly and asked for help. The debate lasted 3 days. The assembly was deeply divided. Many humans wanted to let the council face the Vex alone. They exiled us, one representative argued. They called us too violent, too aggressive, too dangerous. Let them handle this peaceful invasion on their own. Let them see what happens when you exile your warriors. But General Minji, who had commanded the colony ship Horizon's Edge during the Exodus and now led humanity's military forces, argued differently. She stood before the assembly and spoke with quiet intensity. Yes, the council wronged us. Yes, they deserve to face the consequences of their choices. But this isn't about what the council deserves. This is about what freedom deserves. The Vex don't just threaten the council. They threaten every free-thinking being in the galaxy. If we let them destroy the council, they'll come for us next. And more importantly, if we abandon the council now, we become exactly what they accused us of being. Violent, selfish, dangerous. We prove them right for all the wrong reasons. She paused and looked around the hall. We left the council with our heads held high. We built something magnificent. We proved we could be strong without being cruel. Let's prove that strength means protecting those who can't protect themselves, even if they don't deserve it. Especially if they don't deserve it. The assembly voted. It was close, but the decision was made. Humanity would defend the council. But on humanity's terms, Fleet Admiral Tai Yang was given overall command of the combined defense force. It was unprecedented. A human commanding council forces. But the elder species accepted it because they had no choice. They didn't know how to fight a war. Humanity stood in the command center on New Sol and looked at the enormous task ahead of him. 8 months to prepare. 8 months to turn hundreds of peaceful council species into a fighting force capable of defeating the Vex. We need to move fast, he told his staff. The council has ships, but they don't have weapons worth using. Their military doctrine is 2,000 years out of date. We need to retrain them, rearm them, and reorganize them. And we need to do it in 8 months. Chief Engineer Yemen led the effort to refit council vessels with human weapons. He had 5,000 human engineers working around the clock. They stripped outdated council weapons and installed human plasma cannons, missile systems, and shield generators. Admiral Suhi trained council commanders in human combat tactics. She was frustrated by how slowly they learned. The council had been at peace for so long that they had forgotten how to think like warriors. You can't just line up and shoot at each other, she told a group of confused council officers. You need to maneuver, flank, ambush, adapt. The Vex will come at you with overwhelming force. If you fight them head-on, you'll lose. Scientist Yona studied captured Vex technology and developed countermeasures. She discovered that Vex ships used a network system. Every ship was connected through quantum entanglement. It made them incredibly coordinated, but also vulnerable. If you could overload the network, you could disable multiple ships at once, while the military prepared. Humanity's diplomatic corps reached out to species beyond Council space. The Catharan were the first to respond. They brought a fleet of 3,000 warships to join the defense. They were followed by 6 other species that lived beyond Council borders. We've been watching the Council for centuries, the Catharan ambassador explained. We never joined them because they were stagnant and controlling. But humanity showed us something different. You proved that cooperation doesn't require submission. We'll fight beside you. Not for the Council, but for the principle of freedom. As the months passed, the alliance grew. 900 species, united not by Council law, but by shared purpose. The combined fleet numbered 50,000 warships. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. 8 months after the first detection, the Vex Armada appeared on long-range sensors. They were exactly where Dayon had predicted. 8,000 capital ships, each massive and heavily armed. They moved in perfect formation, like a machine rather than a fleet of individual ships. Admiral Taiyang studied the tactical displays and made his decision. We'll meet them at the Three Suns system. It's a choke point with lots of asteroid fields and gravitational anomalies. The terrain favors ambush tactics over formation fighting. He sent out orders to the entire fleet. 50,000 ships began moving into position. Human vessels mixed with Council ships, Catherian warships, and vessels from a dozen other species. It should have been chaos. Different technologies, different languages, different tactical doctrines, but under human leadership, they moved with surprising coordination. The night before the battle, Tiang addressed the entire fleet via holographic transmission. 900 species heard his words. Tomorrow, we face an enemy that believes freedom is a weakness. They believe that diversity creates conflict. They believe that independent thought is a disease. The Three Suns system was chosen carefully. 3 stars orbited each other in a complex dance, creating gravitational anomalies that made navigation difficult. Massive asteroid fields drifted through the system, providing cover and obstacles. It was the perfect place for an ambush. The Vex Armada arrived exactly on schedule. 8,000 capital ships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They arranged themselves in geometric patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't so terrifying. Each ship was massive, bristling with weapons. They moved with mechanical precision, like parts of a single organism. A communication broadcast from the Vex fleet. A face appeared on every view screen in the Allied fleet. It was the same dead-eyed face from the earlier message. The Vex commander spoke in that flat, emotionless voice. This is the Vex Coalition. You have chosen resistance. This is inefficient. Your diversity makes you weak. Your independence creates conflict. Submit now, and you will be preserved. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Admiral Taiyang sat in the command center aboard the human flagship Indomitable. Around him, officers from a dozen different species worked at their stations. He activated his communication system and responded to the Vex. This is Fleet Admiral Taiyang of the Allied Defense Force. You're right about one thing. Our diversity does create conflict. We argue, we disagree. We have different ideas about how things should be done. But that's not weakness. That's strength. Because when we finally agree on something, it's real. It's chosen, not forced. And right now, all 900 species in this fleet agree on one thing. You're not taking our freedom. The Vex didn't respond with words. They responded with weapons fire. 8,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. The space between the fleets lit up with energy beams, missiles, and plasma bolts. The Allied fleet's shields flared as they absorbed the incoming fire. Several smaller ships were destroyed immediately, their shields overwhelmed. But Taiyang had expected this. The ships that had engaged head-on were just the first wave. Council vessels, positioned to look like the main fleet. They were bait. Tactical Officer Hyansu watched his displays and grinned. The Vex are committing 60% of their forces to the frontal assault. They're falling for it. Good, Taiyang said. Execute Phase 2. Activate the cloaked ships. Behind the Vex fleet, space itself seemed to shimmer and twist. 500 human warships appeared out of nowhere. They had been there the entire time, hidden by advanced cloaking technology the Council had never seen. The Vex had never encountered it either. Captain Jiwan commanded one of the cloaked ships. Her vessel, the Silent Hunter, was equipped with the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. All ships, she transmitted to the ambush fleet. Target their command carriers. Fire.
Out 500 ships fired at once.
The Vex command carriers, the massive vessels that coordinated the entire fleet, exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Suddenly, the Vex formation lost its coordination. Ships continued following their original orders. Unable to adapt to the changed situation, Wing Commander Yunji piloted a small fighter craft through the chaos. She was humanity's best pilot, known for her ability to fly in situations that would kill most people. Her mission was reconnaissance, gathering data on Vex technology while the battle raged. She swooped between massive capital ships,
Dodging weapons.
fire and debris. Her sensors gathered information constantly. And then she saw something interesting. All of the Vex ships had the same energy signature. They were all connected somehow. Admiral Taiyang, she transmitted. I think I found something. The Vex ships are networked through quantum entanglement. Every ship is connected to every other ship. That's how they coordinate so perfectly. But it's also a weakness. If we can overload the network, we might be able to disable multiple ships at once. Taiyang immediately contacted scientist Yona, who was aboard the Indomitable analyzing battle data. Can you do it? Can you create a feedback pulse that would overload their network? Yona ran calculations on her computer. Her face went pale as she saw the results. Yes, but it's risky. We'd need to use our quantum slipstream technology to generate the pulse. And there's a chance it could damage our own ships too. We'd be creating a massive quantum disruption. Anything using quantum-based technology in the area could be affected. Taiyang looked at the tactical display. The battle was not going well. The Allied fleet outnumbered the Vex by more than 6-1, but the Vex ships were more heavily armed and armored. Already, 4,000 Allied vessels had been destroyed. The casualty count was climbing into the hundreds of thousands. Do it, he ordered. Transmit the calculations to all human ships. We'll generate the pulse together. All other ships pull back to minimum safe distance. 50 human ships, positioned throughout the battlefield, began modifying their quantum slipstream drives. It took 10 minutes, 10 long minutes, while the battle raged around them. Ships died. People died. But the human vessels held their positions, their engineering crews working frantically. Finally, Yona transmitted the ready signal. All ships prepared, initiating feedback pulse in 3, 2, 1. 50 ships activated their modified drives simultaneously. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Space itself seemed to ripple and pulse. The Vex ships, all connected through their quantum network, received a massive surge of energy. Their shields flickered and died. Their weapons powered down. Their engines went offline. 80% of the Vex fleet went dark in an instant. 8,000 ships had become 6,400 dead hulks floating in space. The remaining Vex ships, the 20% that hadn't been disabled, suddenly found themselves outnumbered 25-1, for the first time in 200 years. The Vex retreated. The Allied fleet watched in amazement as the remaining Vex ships turned and fled, accelerating away at maximum speed. They left behind their disabled vessels, abandoned without hesitation. Taiyang sat back in his chair and let out a long breath. Casualty report. The numbers came in slowly. 8,000 Allied ships destroyed. 400,000 lives lost. Humans, Council species, Katheron, and dozens of others. The victory had come at a terrible price. General Minji, who'd commanded a battle group during the fight, transmitted from her ship. We won, Admiral, but we lost a lot of good people. Yes, Taiyang agreed quietly. Yes, we did. Make sure every name is recorded, every species honored. They died defending freedom. They deserve to be remembered. The disabled Vex ships were secured. Engineers and scientists from multiple species studied them, learning everything they could about Vex technology. What they discovered was both fascinating and horrifying. Every member of the Vex coalition had been genetically modified to remove creativity, aggression, and independent thought. They were efficient, obedient, and utterly incapable of original thinking. No wonder they follow their battle plans exactly, one human scientist observed. They literally can't think of anything else to do. 1 month after the battle, an unexpected message arrived from Vex Space. The Vex Coalition requested a ceasefire in negotiations. The first Vex delegation that arrived at the negotiation site looked different from the ones in the battle. Transmissions. These Vex had emotions in their eyes. They could smile. They could show fear and hope. "We are the resistance," their leader explained. "For decades, we have been fighting against the forced modifications. When you defeated our fleet, you gave us the opening we needed. We have overthrown the old leadership. We want to change. We want to stop the forced modifications. We want our people to have the freedom to choose their own path." The negotiations took 6 months. The Treaty of Three Suns established a new galactic order. The Council and Human Sphere merged into the Federation of Free Worlds, a true democracy where every species had equal representation. The Vex Coalition agreed to end all forced modifications and allow their member species self-determination. Trade and travel would be open across all territories. Most importantly, a mutual defense pact was established. If any species threatened freedom anywhere in the galaxy, all Federation members would respond together. 1 year after the battle, Supreme Director Hun Zong stood before the first session of the Federation Assembly. Representatives from over 900 species filled the enormous hall. "They exiled us because they thought we were too dangerous," she said. They were right. We were dangerous to their old way of thinking. We were dangerous to stagnation, to complacency, to the idea that things couldn't change. Humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't our technology or our weapons. It was our refusal to accept that this was as good as it gets. They voted to exile Earth. We didn't wait to be asked twice. And in leaving, we found not just new worlds, but a new way forward. For everyone, the Assembly applauded. Not just humans, but beings of every shape and size imaginable. Insectoid Vrilic standing beside crystalline Methadary. Catheron next to former Vex. All equal. All free. Admiral Taiyang retired after the war. He and Ambassador Heian. The woman who had stood in the council chamber 8 years ago and witnessed humanity's exile, moved to a peaceful colony world at the edge of human space. They built a small house near the ocean and spent their days watching the sunset over alien seas.